I think being childlike here is more associated with being immature and not knowing much. So the idea that you can take it and put it up there with as important as the adult's viewpoint is probably part of a secret to success.
I think that childhood could be a UNESCO heritage protected site. I think pizza is a UNESCO protected thing now. Like, I actually think childhood in Denmark could be that, because they see childhood as so important for children that they should be able to be children and have a childhood. In Denmark, they want you to be a kid because you know what? We get one childhood and you'll grow up and you'll be an adult.
We already know what helps. Connection is the cure. It's our deep, meaningful relationships that give us hope and healing. Welcome to This Helps. I'm Marlon Morgan, licensed professional clinical counselor and founder and CEO of the national nonprofit Wellness Together. Join us as we practice authentic and vulnerable conversations that inspire us to go deeper with the people in our own lives. You ever been to Denmark?
I've never been to Denmark.
Jessica Joelle Alexander, bestselling author of The Danish Way of Parenting, which was absolutely ruled, and it's very helpful. But then the book we talked about is The Danish Way of Education, which is more about the systems in Denmark and how society treats kids and sort of protects them and respects them. It's pretty hopeful. I really liked it. Definitely gives you a different point of view of what could happen if we wanted to be the happiest people on earth.
Speaking of being the happiest people on earth, that brings me to this week's Marlon Helps. Because I'm wondering, are there ways that we can start, maybe thinking a little more Danishly and getting some of the benefits that Jessica talks about in the episode we're about to listen to?
I think if we could get a little more Danish.
I could always go for a little more Danish.
I did mean the food, but yes, also be a little more Danish.
Yeah.
I think we could probably stand to be a little happier. There's no disputing that they're much happier than us in every measure, and that our relentless need for more always in America does not necessarily make a person happy.
The thing that I am most struck by, and what you said is what I don't know if you know how conversation works, but what you just said made me think of a thing, and now I'm going to say that thing, and then
remind me,
and then you'll probably say something, and I'll
Go
respond. On. Okay, so what you just said made me think of the fact
so that was a good sidebar.
Yeah, just so we're all clued in here, is that it is so necessary to see how other people do things, because it took a long time for me, at least, to even realize there were other ways to do things,
Going to Denmark and spending time there felt like a place I didn't know could exist in almost every way. And you almost have to go there or read a book about it at this point. I did not have a lot of context. I was going there for a conference, and everything else that I saw, from the thousands of unlocked bikes in the middle of a big city,
it's amazing,
to how beautiful every building was in that city, of why it didn't need to be, but it was. It felt really safe, and it is. They have still not ever, they never had a school shooting. They've
that's what I
don't
mean.
experience a lot of the stuff we do.
I know what these conversations always end up being in the public. I know, but it just, that is reason enough to me. It makes it makes plenty of sense in a way that feels bad, but it makes no sense that we're not trying to change the conversation here. And I know, and she said the same thing. I want to say this because it didn't come up until the end of the episode. Denmark is a small country, and we are a huge country, and there are lots of different kinds of people here, and so that makes things more complicated, obviously, of course. But it just seems like there are so many things and other ways of thinking and ways we could be doing things. And when you hear that they've never had a school shooting.
What I always have to remind myself, too, is for one, I mean, I think it has like 6 million people.
Yeah, it's not the tiniest country, but it's much smaller. Yeah.
And the other factor is look, Denmark's not perfect. No place is. But I do think if we could learn to value each other more often just for existing, just for being people, and understand that that was actually the most important thing for our mental health is deep and meaningful relationships with each other. I think if we could just take that step, you don't necessarily have to pay 60% taxes to be happy. It doesn't seem to keep them from being happy, I'll say that. But, we don't even have to get into that. Just like be strong, take in less messages that are trying to get you to be unhappy so you buy something, and value the people around you, even if you don't like them, even if you don't agree with them. Show them human dignity and value and love.
I don't think you or I or even Jessica is saying we should become Denmark. I think what we're saying is there's a lot to be learned from a country that tends to be pretty categorically happy in so many ways that we generally are not always.
Yeah. Could we get the happiness from Denmark and the weather of San Diego and just sort of get that? I mean, San Diego, I think, has 3 million people. So could we just do it here?
Right.
That's the proposal I have. So if any politicians are listening, turn San Diego into a Danish based, place.
Yeah, I love that.
Jessica Joelle Alexander is a best-selling author. She wrote The Danish Way of Parenting, which was a huge bestseller. She just recently published The Danish Way of Education, which is so good. We talked a lot about it on this upcoming conversation. Can't wait to see what you get out of it, what you learn. Hopefully you can share that back with us. You can find us at thishelpspodcast.com or at thishelps on all of the wonderful social media that has made our lives and society so much better. Also at This Helps Podcast. She currently teaches at the University of Copenhagen. She researched at California, Berkeley. She's on BBC World News, CBS News, Time, The Wall Street Journal, of course. Why not? And she's just an expert all around on parenting, education, and digital well-being. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Jessica Joelle Alexander, we are so pleased to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where do you find yourself right now? Geographically and time-wise, we're on quite a bit of a different schedule right now, but if you could just briefly describe your location, I think that's going to help.
I am currently in Copenhagen in Denmark, and it's 6:30 p.m., and actually I haven't seen the sun for about a week, but it just came out now. We're having longer days because Scandinavia, we get in the spring, we start to get longer days. So yeah, everybody's a bit happy about that.
Yeah, is that sort of the time to spend more time is spent inside? I have been to Denmark and to Copenhagen, and I believe I got a very idealistic view because the days were sort of what I was used to at that perfect timing. But you're there right now. It's the spring. And, how long, you said it's been a week since you've seen the sun. Like, how short do the days get? And then how long do they get before they start going back in the other direction?
So they stay long throughout the summer, and then I think about mid-October, end of October, it starts to change, and then you sort of grieve, and then it gets dark, and then you try to plan to go visit family in Florida, and maybe a trip to the south, and grab a little sunshine. But But no, I mean, now it's when, I mean, this is the magical season. So it's a good
Everybody,
time. It's a good time to come. I don't recommend coming in the winter.
I feel like if you're going to move there, if you're considering moving there, like half of Americans right now, uh, it it, uh, it would be good to come during the winter because it could actually give you some real reality, so that you're not disillusioned. But when you say this,
You
go
know,
ahead.
the first winter is always charming. It's very hygge. Yes. I think it's the winters after that that get a little bit
If there were a
challenging.
live audience just now, when you said, and I'm going to do my best, I would normally say "hygge."
You said it very well.
Okay. I feel like if we had a live audience just now, they would have gone crazy just for that word because I don't know that there's a better, I don't think there's anything more pure that America has turned into something more commercial in the last 10 years than than that concept. And today, I would love to go over a number of concepts that actually some of them related and some of them not so related. But, you know, you've written a few books now that have been very helpful, I think, for people who want to understand, as you put it, the happiest people in the world. A lot of people, they center on their own culture and they tend to think, like, oh, we have everything. We should be the happiest in the world, which maybe that's what makes us less happy. But talk to us a little bit about how you got there, where you're originally from, and started what was the moment when you said, I really need to share this with the rest of the world?
Well, I'm originally from Florida, and I moved to Europe many, many years ago, and I met my Danish husband in Belgium, actually. I didn't know where Denmark was on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first went to Denmark, at that time, I wasn't 100% sure that I even wanted to have kids. And
Okay.
I wasn't a kid person, let's say, which is kind of ironic. So,
Mm-hmm.
but when I went to Denmark, the thing that struck me the most was actually the kids. Yeah,
Really?
because I just noticed they seemed so serene and happy and calm and well behaved, and you didn't hear any like screaming and yelling, and there seemed to be this sort of um, amazing rapport between parents and toddlers, and it really stood out for me from the very beginning. And I'm not even sure if we were. I think we were just engaged at that time, but I remember telling my husband that if I could get a guarantee that we would have Danish children, then I was down for kids.
Did he say, yeah, I think I can help with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or,
No, but it was, I from there, I mean, it was kind of a joke, but it really wasn't. I was fascinated. I'm a kind of a researcher by trade, let's say. So I really grasped onto this and started trying to understand what was so different. Because for sure there was something very different. And so I was like really studying it for years. And then when we had our first kids, or our first kid, um, I had read a lot of parenting books trying to prepare for it. But when she was born, I found that I preferred all of the Danish advice. And it it
all of it? Was there anything that was like, you know, that you read and you were like, I don't know about
well, there was
that. Like
nothing I read.
that's a
This was
little.
just like people telling me, like my in-laws and my friends.
Oh,
This was
okay,
just like what
okay.
people knew. There was no book. That's why I wrote the books.
That's why you wrote the book. Okay.
Because I thought I was able to access all of this advice, and it seemed like everybody knew this way. And I started finding that I really preferred the Danish advice and the Danish way to all of the other books that I was reading and all the other parenting books I had a library of parenting books.
Is that one of the reasons you were nervous to, or maybe a little bit reticent to have kids, is because you felt like you really needed to prepare?
Yes, I wanted to be uber, uber, uber prepared.
Okay. So it sounds a bit anxiety provoking, which I think it is for anyone who really understands what it's about to happen. I think it's true. So you had read mostly uh, parenting books that were centered in American culture, or what were the ones that you had read that you kind of didn't feel like gave you what you needed?
It's funny. I mean, I really did. I was also put on bed rest for quite a while before I gave birth, so I had a lot of time. And so I had a mix of all of the kind of basic books that you will see, the kind of the most well-known ones, to ones that my friends had given me. Some were Australian.
Everything you could get your hands on, would you say?
Everything I could get my hands on, I tried to prepare for. And basically, yeah, it was after quite a few times of just like getting the in-laws' advice and the friends' advice, um, I just stopped going to the books.
Because of the people around you were just so willing to share, you know, their wisdom with you, and were they excited for you, or were they like controlling? I mean, sometimes people, when they talk about their in-laws, they'll say, they gave a lot of advice that I actually did not want.
No, I think it's just there, again, because there is really sort of a way.
Mhm.
So the advice is
The
just,
Danish
yeah,
way.
basically. So although the advice is a little bit varied, it's also very standard, and there's very little sort of doubt in it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, a stupid example is just if you're having issues getting your child to sleep, it's just put them outside. You know, that was always the answer.
What did that
Just put them outside to sleep.
Wait, can you unpack that a little bit? Because I think we know the weather in Denmark is a major factor. So what does that look like?
That looks like you put them in the stroller or stroller, and you wrap them up and you put them outside. It doesn't matter that it's cold. It doesn't matter that it's raining. Kids sleep best outside. That is the sort of belief. That's why also you've heard, maybe you've heard the stories of, you'll often find, strollers outside of cafes here. And
Yeah, I have. I always chalk that up to like the trust level, which you do write about quite a bit. But tell us about that when you see it, because I don't think you see that here in the States too often.
No, actually,
Hopefully.
there was a famous story of a Danish woman getting arrested in New York because she left her baby in a stroller outside.
Wow.
But no, it's just that there's I think, there's some general ideas of what's good for kids, and that's things like, nature, play. It's like I said, I find if I compare it, it's much more simple. You know what? I can chalk it up to this. I remember when the woman did the audio reading for one of the books, she said to me, God, I do so many parenting books. But she said, this is just common sense.
Yeah, I feel like that is part of what there just seemed like to be a lot less fear involved. That was what struck me through reading at least the most recent book that is absolutely incredible book, The Danish Way of Education. it looks like this for people who are watching. It is something you definitely, if you have kids or you're involved in education, the ideas in the book are actual, like, practical and, things that you can implement in your classroom, like, today, that I don't think you have to be an expert to do. I can say as a licensed therapist and, someone involved in mental health for a long time, the sort of common sense, almost basic, but almost, because of that, it could be a little scary, culturally, but a lot of the things in, Jessica, in your book are that it's common sense, but it's almost like it took, an entire, culture to agree that these things were common sense and that they were gonna be helpful.
Yes, and I mean, this one is the education book, and so it's a little bit different. I think the parenting book is what I meant more like common sense in terms of, the idea of free play and authenticity and some of these things. The education book, it was a little more having to peel back even deeper into what they're doing so differently in education. And that I do think it is these things are actually simple to apply, but it almost requires like a mind shift.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time on school campuses, I think either in preparation or just because of your, position as a parent there. Tell us a little bit about your life as a parent, and also how'd you end up on, so many of these campuses?
I think it was sort of the next step after parenting. I think when your kids are little, you have more control over how you influence them, or as a parent, you do have some influence. But as they get older, then it becomes more clear that the education starts to have an influence. And I just found that the education was also so different. And I was so fascinated by it. And I just went in, and I mean, I have a lot of friends that are teachers and work in schools, and I asked if I could sit in on classes, and I just observed for a long time. Um, and like, I mean, I think what I'm sort of good at is, if you look at a culture, if I hold up a cultural pattern to the culture, it just looks like the normal to them.
Right, like a fish in water, like,
But
what's water?
yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly it. For if you ask a Danish child if they're learning empathy, they don't even know what it means.
Yes, genuine loving kindness, and not just looking out for yourself. It's interesting, a lot of, the cultural norms that we have are so based on the individual, and you do a great job throughout of saying, like, "I'm not sure this is helpful," or uh, even, "I'm not sure this is going to be sustainable or make us happy." You just kinda you're not saying anything negative about other cultures, but it does feel a little bit depressing to be in, we're in California, close to LA, and, the things that our society holds up as important, whether it's, winning, or whether it's, I think you didn't say this exactly, but everyone else losing. I think that is probably, what we've seen the most of as a culture, sadly, because you know all winning together seems impossible until you read one of your books or you go visit and stay for a while. What's the difference?
Oh my gosh, what's the difference? Well, it's I think one of the biggest differences is the idea. I would say one of the fundamental differences in terms of the education, especially, is the belief here is that the individual child does not do well if the group is not doing well.
Mm. Well, does that follow through to adult life?
Well, I think everything follows through into adult life. I think every culture, when you look at adults, you'll see how they were parented and educated. It's very interesting. It's like we just are just kids that grow up. So a lot of, I think I've seen that in many different cultures. It's just fun. You can so see the education system or the culture reflected into us as adults. I mean, we're just big kids at the end of the day. And so, yes, I do think it goes into adulthood and the workplace. When you have this basis of like, kids' sense of belonging, their friendships, the social aspect, and I don't mean social emotional learning. I mean,
why not?
This like
What's
a deeper
the difference?
because so that's more. I think that's more of like, I'm gonna teach you. And their idea is much more of an organic thing that happens. That's not taught. It's more modeled and something you're aware of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, social emotional learning is kind of like, hey, we've ignored this for a long time, and now we're going to give you information about something you should know about, versus we're going to point out opportunities, or tell stories and have you problem solve, or actually create a process that you can be involved in and take ownership in. That's the biggest differences that I saw in reading about what you talked
Yeah,
about.
and not calling it social emotional learning.
Yeah, it's like, why were they separate to begin with? And you also talk a lot about how grades, for example, they don't really give grades until middle school in Denmark. You don't see, I'm just, for anyone who hears that and is going to say, but what, where are they at with education? They're doing great in education. And where are they at with creativity? I don't know. Most creative in Europe. I think, like, you can't even walk around and see a building like that doesn't look like it took, a million people to design it. It's very thought out and amazing. It's almost like by changing the soil that we as humans grow in and making it more nutritious and full of love and looking out for your neighbor and connection. It's almost like out of that grows a completely different human experience.
That's it. Yeah. And that's and it is that's it. It's so different, and I think, I mean, people have talked about this idea that kids are different and you have the orchid and the dandelion. And I think one of the differences is that, I mean, that's a classic example, right? That we use in America a lot as well. That,
Well, I don't think we all know that example. So
okay, so the orchid is an incredibly beautiful flower, right? But it's very fragile, and it requires a lot of very special care to become that. Otherwise, it will die. Whereas a dandelion grows through concrete. You can't stop it practically, you know? And this is just like, kids are organic and they're different, and they grow at different rates, and they grow in different ways, and they're good at different things. And I think one of the biggest differences here is because there's not as much focus only on academics, and it's a mix of academics and Dannelse, it's called, which is like basically how to be a good human, and it's sort of 50-50. They focus a lot on this belief that they're all these different flowers and they need different things. And so the reason they don't get the grades is so that they don't start competing so early and measuring themselves only by, I'm good at math, I'm good at English, but they're measuring themselves on many, many, many different things, because they want the kids to see that we're all good at different things and we all need each other at different times for different reasons.
And even if you don't excel in one area that maybe would be the best for the economy at that moment, then you still have inherent value as a dandelion, as an orchid, as a flower, as a living thing, that's actually what gives you value, is that you exist versus what you have behind you on the wall.
Well, again, if I think because we've had such a narrow idea of what success looks like, and that's, or what being smart looks like, and that you want to be
Mm.
smart and go to the Ivy League school, and I mean, this is the sort of dream we have pumped into our movies. And what is it, like minus 0.3% actually go to these schools?
Yeah, you put it in your
Um,
book. I think it's 0.4%
right, right.
students that attend Ivies.
But
Mhm.
like, look at every romantic comedy. Who doesn't go to Harvard or MIT or um, you know?
Yeah, those bricks look great on the big screen. Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's,
Yeah, that's a good point.
but so we have this narrow idea of what success is, and so what does that do? If you're not a good test taker, which like I wasn't a good test taker, or if you're not,
Mhm.
super studious, that, and the other, then somehow you fall out of that, what we have deemed as successful. And what's so interesting is, I mean, I've been writing about education for, I don't know, 10 years now. I've been, working on this book and these concepts. And what's so fascinating now is that with AI and the way that everything's changing, I think that,
Mhm.
like, the World Economic Forum just came out with their most recent report of the skills for the future and what AI is taking over
Mhm.
and what it's not taking over. And the number one skill that
Mhm.
AI is not taking over, that the World Economic Forum has said, is empathy. And then it's like creativity, resilience,
Yeah, how can you have empathy with that experience?
but like math, science, all of that, it's like AI is taking over. So what's fascinating is to think that what we have deemed as the best skills may be completely changing.
Yeah, I think they are. I think it's not even a question at this point. I think we're far enough into it where, and I had shared with a large group of teachers in the past. A long time ago, I worked as a school counselor, and every once in a while, I'd, talk to a student who would say, my teacher, I like most of my teachers, but this one teacher, they have actually said, "Hey, they're here because they like science. They love science and they love teaching it, but they don't necessarily love being a teacher or having to help students develop into adults." And often, I would, think this, but I actually did say it a few years ago, and I'm not sure how popular it was. I haven't been invited back, but I did say, "Hey, if you got into teaching purely because you love science, but you don't want to or have the skills to connect with the students you're teaching, you have just become obsolete. Because if all you have is information, well, you'll never have even close to the amount of information they have in their pocket. So it's time to learn how to connect." And I think the Danish Way of Education is a great book to give people, especially if they're in that situation, because it's hard to refute. You can't. I love the premise, and in your other, in the parenting book as well, just always pointing out that they're doing great. People in Denmark are overall much more, have a lot more feelings of goodwill, happiness, contentment, whatever you want to call it. And so who wouldn't want that? And so it's hard for someone, a scientist, to go in there and say, this is the way that works. It's important. And it's like, well, it's actually both. And what good is a life with just information and no deep connections?
It's like many people, they hear some of the concepts and it's, "Oh, it's too far away. I don't know. That doesn't." But again, like, because we are so hung up on measurements, it's like, over 50 years in a row, always in the top 3 of the happiest countries in the world. Top in empathy, top in trust, top in innovation. And again, it's a small country, I understand, and I think it's very difficult for us now as adults to make a huge change. But I always say I really believe that if we start raising our kids with some of these concepts, whether it's more empathy or play, and in the way that we talk about in these books, then the kids will grow up to change the system.
It's great. Even just letting them know there's the the option for something different, because I think we do a very good job here in America of saying, this is the option. This is the best option. Look what it built with it, while we ignore the sort of good things going on other places. We're constantly trying to think and say that we're the best. So in the book, The Danish Way of Education, you use sort of an acronym that is TEACH, that goes through. I loved that, and it goes trust, empathy, authenticity, courage, and hygge.
Mm-hmm.
Love that you threw that in at the end. I want to see if we can walk through some of these in a way that maybe you weren't expecting, and you got to tell me if this is offensive, because having been to Denmark and then having taken the bridge over to Malmo in Sweden, you do see a lot of IKEA. You do see one of their main buildings, and it got me thinking. I know Danes and Swedes have their differences, and I know they're not the same. However, I do think reading both of your books has given me, in the best of ways, the same feeling I have when I walk into an actual IKEA. I walk in, I'm like, whoa, why is everything so cool? Why does it all look like this? Who's designing this? Why does the rest of the world look like this? This is giving me such a good feeling. There's no clutter. Everything's designed. And then I start to look and see, okay, well, what's that called? Because maybe I want it. And it is, I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even know if they're letters.
Fluken Schmukenborg.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm looking at Andrea's face. She's giving me the face of, I'm not going to be able to use this. People are going to be offended. But I'm sorry. I just said how much I loved
you're not,
it.
you're not wrong.
I'm
the
buying
Fluken Schmukensborg, the Fluggy Flug.
Yeah. Okay. You just want to make sure everyone knows that's Jessica saying all those things.
Okay. I get it. Even in Swedish, it's weird. A lot of the words.
With that, and now that I have you as a guide, you've done a great job at taking some of these words that one might see similar to something you might see in IKEA on a day-long marathon of, dorm room shopping or getting a new place or whatever. And I've pulled out a few of these words. I'm going to try to pronounce them, which is going to be even more offensive to more people.
I can't wait. Let's hear.
Okay. I would love if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you head over to YouTube, because I'm going to put these words up on the screen as Marlon tries to say them, so you'll really get a good comparison of...
Thank you. And I'm going to say, if all I have is the actual Danish alphabet, because in some of the cases, that is what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at this point, the first one is going to have what looks like an A mixed with a lowercase e. So I'm going to do my best. But the first word, Jessica, I'm hoping, I'm in the IKEA of Danish education, and I want to know why I want to know what atlære is.
That was very well.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, atlære. Okay. Atlære. You said it correctly.
Okay, you definitely said it a lot better than I did, but I appreciate the support.
I knew what you were saying. Yeah, atlære.
Well, thank you. I feel great.
It was a word that I when I would hear Danish people speaking English, I thought that they were making mistakes in English, because they would say, I learn him English. Or, so they would mix up teach and learn. And so I thought that this was just, they were making a mistake, in the language. But then I realized that the verb atlære, which means to teach, it also means to learn. So it's interchangeable.
Weird.
That's the verb they have for both. But it's not weird when you understand the educational model, I believe, which is, the teacher and the taught together create the teaching.
So the teacher's actually learning the whole time they're teaching.
The teachers learn from the students as well.
Yeah, there's gonna be I think a lot of these are gonna come down to a pretty good dose of real humility in the
Hmm.
best sense. That is one of the, as I look at this list of incredible words, uh, it it you have to, at some point, admit your own, limitations in order to let other people in or to let, the relationships deepen, and that's something that I felt throughout the book and absolutely love. There I'm gonna go okay, I'm looking, I get to the, I don't know, kitchen section, and I see 2 items, Trivsel
Hmm.
and Trivsel-Tal.
Oh wow. Okay.
What am I seeing?
You got like you got about a 5 on that
Well, yeah,
one.
which one? I split the difference. I hedged my
Um.
bets because I went
So we
Triv and
have
then Trive, and
yeah
then you tell me.
we have Trilse,
Okay,
Trilse,
t tl tl Trivsel?
Trilse, and Trilse's tail. I mean, I'm not even great at pronouncing Trilse's tail.
I don't know. I don't think it
Yeah,
gets any better than
exactly,
what you just
exactly,
did.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
so trivsel and is very, very, very important word in Danish education. Actually, it's a very important word in all of Denmark. It was one of those words that just blew me away, and one of the things that made me want to study it even more and write about it. Trivsel basically means it basically means well-being or happiness. But it can also mean to like thrive. They sometimes talk about it with plants. We were talking about kids being plants. Um,
Mhm.
it's very much tied to happy you are, sort of, but in a more profound way. And what was fascinating to me is there that's probably one of the most talked about words when they talk about education is trivsel. And kids,
Odd.
they care about how they feel and that they're feeling well. They don't believe that you learn well if you don't feel well.
When I first pitched an idea of supporting mental health in schools in this country, which we've had the fortune of building quite the, organization to be able to do that, but when I first started, this was only, 13 years ago, the school most of the people on the school board that we asked if we could give additional help for well-being so that students could access the curriculum and feel good at school, their first response was, "We don't do that. This is a school." It was like trying to start a hospital in an architecture firm. They just could not get it. They did not get it at all. We're a little bit
Exactly.
more advanced
Exactly.
now, but it seems like you've been doing this forever.
Well, I mean, listen to this. So this is just a fun fact that is, I find, just sort of bonkers, mind-blowing. So they don't have grades, they don't have standardized tests. They do have one standardized test that they take every year, maybe even twice a year, but definitely once a year for both the students and the teachers. And that is a standardized
Cool.
test in trivsel. So all of the students and all of the
Wow.
teachers take a trivsel test to find out. It has nothing to do with academics. It has nothing to do with academics. It's literally like some of the questions are, um, do you feel soothed when you feel like, does someone soothe you when you feel sad? Do you soothe others? Do you feel the teachers listening to you? I mean, it's all these like sort of empathic questions. And
It makes me
and
want to
even
cry.
when you look up schools, I know, right? I have cried sometimes in watching some of the things I've seen in schools. I'm not joking. I've teared up, had goosebumps,
Yeah.
and like I can feel it on my head as well sometimes when I think about some of these experiences. It's just so touching and like mind-blowing, and you're like, "Oh my God." So, with this trivsel test, for example, in America, you're looking for the good schools, right? You want to find the best schools, and these are the schools that have high grades and are great at this, that, and the other. In Denmark, you can look online and you can find schools with the trivsel level.
That's so
So you
cool.
can find the
That's
schools with the
incredible.
Yeah, it's
happiness level.
amazing.
So when we moved to Copenhagen a few years ago, we've lived in different places, and when we moved to Copenhagen, we were looking for a school for our son. And we were looking at the trivsel levels on the school to choose which school to choose. And then we went in and met with the head to see what we felt best with. But like, yeah, okay, so that's one. That's just hello. That's pretty mind blowing.
That's unbelievable. And the idea that the idea that they'll have teachers take it. I'll give 2 examples only because I want people to know who are listening to this. We have a lot of people in education, leaders, policy folks that tune in here, and the times where early on we tried to suggest something called a universal screener that would be the closest to what you're talking about. However, it still has that whole sort of insurance-y, diagnostic, clinical, something's broken within you if you don't get a good score on this test. It still has that vibe, and because of that, schools were and are still worried that they're going to get sued if they find a problem and don't take care of it, and maybe they're under-equipped to do so. But I'll tell you, yesterday, and this is even more extreme and more sad. Yesterday, I talked to a county here in Northern California near Silicon Valley that the County Office of Education said that in the last 2 years, they've had 8 educators die by suicide.
Oh.
So the idea that this is ingrained anywhere in the world and thought about, cared about, if we don't do so, like, what is the point? What is the point of all this efficiency, of all this information, of all the striving, the competition? What is the point if that's also what's happening in our system?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it requires a mind shift, and one of the reason that I've written these books and especially this education book actually is it's a philosophy, and I'm not saying this is not a blueprint, but if it helps us at all change our mindset and get a different, like, just a different perspective on how it could be different and how we could measure things in a different way, and believe in that, I think it could change things. So I think it could change things really positively.
It gives me hope, and I appreciate that. That's, I think as far as what you asked for from a book, if something gives you knowledge but also hope, I don't think you can ask for anything more. So I'm going to move on to the I'm so committed to this bit of being in IKEA that I'm going to move into the bedding section. I don't know, like,
Okay,
they have a
okay.
lot of nice blankets, and I see this blanket that's absolutely important for society, and it's called Barnison.
Ah, but
Bornsen?
mhm, mhm. Do you remember how hygge was pronounced?
Huga?
Yeah, so look at the word again and see if you can pronounce it.
Bornison?
Barnesoon.
Barnesoon. Oh, Huga. Okay.
Mhm.
Barnesoon. I'm gonna start. Okay, these Y's are used for me
Yep,
from now on.
that's right.
What is that, and why is it so different from here?
Barnesoon means child sight, and it's a word that describes something that teachers are very much sort of aware of and equipped with and talk about, and that's being able to see from the child's viewpoint. So they talk a lot
So
about barnesyn, so being able to see what the child sees or mentalizing with them.
yeah, I don't know that is a huge push over here in education. I think the teacher's viewpoint and slash the union of teachers' viewpoint is one of the more uh, prioritized than the child's viewpoint. I don't even know that has a name. I think being childlike here is more associated with being immature and not knowing much. So the idea that you can take it and put it up there with as important as the adult's viewpoint is probably part of a secret to success.
So
would
I will
imagine.
let me explain something that will really also, I think, encapsulate a little bit the philosophy, um, or to try to understand the philosophy a little bit, because it is a little bit tied to Barnesyn. And that is, children here are seen as incredibly competent from the time they're babies. Children are respected. They're respected. Their childhood is respected. So I actually wrote an article about this. When I look at children here, it's almost like I think that childhood could be a UNESCO heritage protected site. Because
Love that. Love the idea of that.
but that's literally, I really believe it could be like they could make that I think pizza is a UNESCO protected thing now. Like I actually think childhood in Denmark could be that, because they see childhood as so important for children, that they should be able to be children and have a childhood and not be adultified and not have to be an adult and talk like Doogie Howser and, use...
Great reference.
Hey, how about that, huh? I remember that. Use really, because we love that, right? Oh, my 4-year-old can read the encyclopedia. And in Denmark, they want you to be a kid. Because you know what? We get one childhood and you'll grow up and you'll be an adult.
You mentioned that sometimes adults can fall into the trap of making their kids badges of honor for them. Is that
Designer
sort of what you're
bags.
referring to here?
Designer bags, badges of honor. Oh my gosh, how my, and it's like, and we don't realize how much pressure that puts on the child to perform. They see, they want to please their parents. They want their parents to be proud of them. They want their parents to love them. They sense that if they act like Doogie Howser, or I don't know who the current reference would be, the brilliant genius 4-year-old who acts like a 40-year-old doctor, or is got the early entrance exam to Harvard at whatever age, this is pressure on kids. And I think that the opposite is true in Denmark. It's like, don't put that on them. Like, let them be kids, let them be creative, let them play, let them be children. And they treat them with a lot of respect. Like, you'll see a lot of kids on the news. When they do news programs, they often ask kids for their opinions. And they speak to kids with respect. And this is the Barnesyn I'm talking about. Like, what do you think? I want to learn from you. What do you think? And the irony, and this is what I noticed that first time I went to Denmark when I was 23, whatever, how old I was. Children who are treated with respect act with a lot of respect and seem very mature.
Yeah, so they actually do feel like a 40-year-old doctor in some ways, but it's not because we're trying to make them be that.
There's a strange maturity with kids here, and a like I said, they're like a serenity, and I do believe that there's something about being allowed to have a childhood and allowed to play and allowed to not have to live up to all of these standards that we have deemed as important for success, and that parents get into the rat race and we compete with each other, and we want our kids to be in 16 activities, because if we're not, we're failing them. And it's a lot of pressure.
I'm thinking about like the contrast between saying, kids get to play and be kids and all of that, but also they're respected and they know that and what they think matters. And I think, I don't know, when you're a kid, all you want is to be heard and respected and to be felt like what you have to say matters. I think a lot of kids in the States get one or the other, but it's cool to hear that they kind of get to have both of those things at the same time. And I think maybe that is the big difference, it sounds like to me anyway.
I think it's feeling seen and heard, and it's also getting time in like nature, for example, to study a leaf and think about it without having to recite all of the Latin root names of that leaf.
Yeah, but you never know when you're going to get quizzed on that.
Well, but that's the funny thing. I would have said that 5-10 years ago, and you're right. But now with the way things are changing with the computer and or with AI and stuff, it's like then actually maybe getting that time to reflect and that time to think and that time to get a sense of self and that time to get a sense of what do I want. That's the big difference.
So figure out who you are before you become a botanist or a linguist.
Yeah, or before you're told what you want.
That's a great point. Okay, well, I might be rushing us a little bit because I got to get through this list. We're on number 4, and I don't think we have to go through everything, but there's 15 of them. So let me say a few that may go together. They may not go together. I'm going to take a phrase, and this phrase does actually feel to me like what it sounds like once you hear it. The phrase I'm going to go with first is free for mobbery.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I'm going to go Kropsglad.
Mm-hmm.
Klassenstime.
Klassenstime.
And let's just do those. Yeah.
Okay.
Klassenstime.
Mm-hmm. I'll take
Why do those fit together and what
I'll take free for mobbery for 20, please.
Something tells me you're going to have the right answer.
I'll take a Kropsglad for free for mobbery is it's an anti-bullying program that they have here. Which is
from
probably
a
we'll
bully.
talk about that later because I have a feeling you have more down the list that free from
I do.
bullying basically. Then you have Kropsglad, which is body happiness. That's learning how to be happy with your body, and that's part of education from when they're very young.
Yeah, you called it positive relationship with one's body.
Yep.
That's another definition you had.
So it's literally, from the time they're little, they want kids to know their body. They want them to use the right terms, not to have embarrassment about it, because we know that this is what protects you actually more than anything from pedophiles and all this stuff, is that you can use the right terms and you're comfortable saying no and we can talk about it. And so there's a lot less shame, a lot less taboo. As I say in the book,
you have rights as a kid.
You have rights as a kid, and they talk about this every single year from when they're like 4 all the way up until 16, and it just keeps growing every year as their age grows. So, I also talk about in the book, there's a national week, which in Denmark they talk about the days by the number of weeks. So like week 1 in January is the first week. It's actually really confusing because when people make plans here, they're like, "Do you want to meet in week 23?" And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what that is. What day is that?"
What are you, Palm Pilot? Yeah.
Yeah. But week 6, which is the second week of February, right? 4, 6, that's the 6th week. So the number in Danish for the number 6 is sex. That's how we say 6.
So it's the same.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sex. And so uge 6, week 6, is literally sex week. It's a national week that's devoted across the country to teaching kids about sex, your body. You'll see ads even in the streets about it. It's awareness. Let's talk about it. And it's for all ages.
What are the ads for? The fact that it's happening?
It's happening. It's a national thing. They have something called Sex and Society. It's a big part of education. There's no taboo. We should understand our bodies. We should understand our rights. We should understand empathy, boundaries, how it has to do with social media. And there's a week that's just dedicated to it in education. So teachers can take that week and really focus on lessons for whatever age that have to do with that. And the reason they also talk about it even on TV is so that parents are open to talking about it, so that it's a conversation, And again,
so it's not, you can't
sexuality
get
is
clammed
more
up
than
and nervous and.
Yeah, it's just like it. It's like you can, we don't need to have shame about something so natural.
You bring that up. You talked about the difference between guilt language and shame language at one point, and I remember that being helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think there's a big push here for tolerance and again, if it's part of life, it should be part of education. Like our bodies are a huge part of our life. We like, we think we're educating our head, right? Like, we're just like a little brain walking around. It's like, no, it's this whole thing, and it involves food, and it involves feelings, and so this is also about how feeling. It's about boundaries. It's about, they do exercises like, how do you feel when you feel like you want to say no? How do you say no?
How do you detect that in your body?
Right.
How do you detect that in your body? They do role plays. They do role plays where they have kids looking at each other, and not just how you say no, but how the other person hears your no. Because sometimes we say no and we go, no. So it's that's empathy as well, right? It's like, these are just some of for me, the fascinating ways of education, which I would never have thought of. Learning, boundaries, and how we feel boundaries, and how we express our boundaries, and how we feel feelings, where we feel feelings.
There's a huge emphasis on, I think, the miracle of how life is created, which is, what could be more interesting than that? But you also make the point that Danes are not afraid to, and actually make it part of regular life, to talk about the opposite of that, which is death. And that's a major conversation topic, which is one I think would, for most people, especially where I live, I think if we were to talk about that a little more often, we would be a lot less anxious in general, because there is some humility to it. There's some relief to admitting it, instead of just trying to ignore it constantly, or be entertained and shocked out of it. But to talk about it with the people you love, wow, how would that change things?
I mean, yeah, there's a whole chapter devoted to this, to authenticity, and how they talk about death here, and it's part of education. I mean, my son has done a lesson in the graveyard. They go to the graveyard together, and they do all kinds of different lessons around death. It is very openly talked about. You're much closer to it. There's much less shame around it. It's like very existential. And what was fascinating for me as an American who also grew up with, like, let's not talk about that.
Right. Scary.
It's been really, like, eye-opening for me, just about how meaningful it is, and how much closer it can bring you to your kids. And again, what's striking about it, and I also wrote about this in the book, was that, so I did talk about it with my kids from an early age because of the Danish way, and I was influenced, and I was getting these books from our family, and which is very common to be, the happy endings are not happy always here, because again, it's like, actually, life is not a fairy tale. And their belief
But is that the
that
biggest difference, Jessica? Is that the biggest difference when you take a Danish writer like Hans Christian Andersen, and you mention writing The Little Mermaid? I thought I knew the story of The Little Mermaid, but all I knew was the marketable, very
Disney version.
happy version. Can you tell us what actually happens to Ariel?
Everybody buckle up.
Yeah.
Because it is not what you think.
She doesn't get married and live happily ever after.
She didn't get those legs?
She did not. In the real version, or in the original version, which is Danish, she doesn't get the prince, and she dies of sadness and turns into sea foam.
Oof.
And actually,
Oof. I don't think there's a ride at Disneyland that's gonna do that.
No, and many of the fairy tales have sad endings, and really some brutal endings. And this was a surprise for me. But I read both versions with the kids, and I noticed that my daughter preferred the sad version. And the thing is that kids actually like to talk about all emotions. we just don't actually have that many opportunities to do it, and it's not as culturally accepted. And it's hard because we don't have the answers. And I think the difference is here, it's like you don't have to have the answers. You just have to be open to talking about it and answering questions and exploring it and looking at, kids are fascinated by dead animals or dead bugs or things they find in the forest. And this, you read that. I think I have that in the book as well, that's also sometimes for a lesson plan for some kids where they actually take in a dead
Yeah.
something and they watch it decompose and they talk about it and
Yeah.
what is it? And they
Gnarly.
bring up, I know it sounds like that, but like, again, kids are actually fascinated by it. And
It's not as
when we
scary
don't,
when you're a kid because it's just kind of like, that's what happens? Oh, cool.
and you can have many different sort of, this is not excluding, you may have different religions, you have different reasons, and they talk about that as well. They allow for different opinions. But what's so good about it is that what I discovered myself was because we had been talking about it, then when they were, I don't think my daughter was 7 maybe, and my son was 4, and my husband's father died. And it was Christmas, and it was with the family around, and it was very emotional. And, when you're very emotional, it's the last thing you want to do is sit down and explain or have this or, and then some people say things that are like really, you know, grandpa's just gone to sleep, or I mean, who knows, that you can say all kinds of
Like
different
euphemisms for
things.
death so
Yeah.
you don't have to say it. Yeah.
But what was amazing was I realized we had talked about it. She knew. She knew.
Yeah. She
She
already
was even
knew
able to
that
help.
was going to happen.
Yeah, but and she understood what was going on, and it was like, and it was such a relief for us at that time, because on top of everything else, like, you didn't have that. So it was I don't know, it was just very organic. And I think, I just read that Nicole Kidman's becoming a death doula, because she
Mm.
wishes that she'd had someone helping her more. It's the one thing we know we're all going to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about it, is there a time where you have more uh, of potential for close, meaningful, cut all the crap and get real relationship? I think it's when you have to and can no longer ignore the reality of death. And it's sad that some people have to wait till the end of life and be absolutely crushed by that possibility, because if I could talk about it with my parents and my teachers and knew that it happened to everyone and it's going to happen to everyone, and just be together in it, which I think is the most helpful. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I see there's signs all over the place here. I've noticed for death groups or grieving groups, or
Yeah.
like, also in schools, they have groups. They'll have like a counselor that organizes groups for any kids that have lost someone. So they know if the kids are experiencing death in their family, or they have gone, so that they help them also process it.
Can't remember I think it was Aristotle that talked about the feeling and sort of happiness, but you made the point that it's uh like what'd you say? A deeper version, like
Mhm, mhm.
a deeper version of happiness versus like maybe fleeting pleasure or dopamine hit. It feels like the only way you can actually have that deeper version of happiness is to admit that life is fleeting, that it's short, that it's precious,
That it's painful,
that it's painful, not running from the pain every chance we get.
that it has peaks and crevices and cracks, and that it's actually, the crack is where the light comes in.
Yeah, great. And there's nothing that makes, I don't think I can speak for myself, nothing that makes me more sad and anxious than feeling like I should never feel sad and anxious.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what we're sold quite a bit. One of the other things that I don't know that we'll have time to get to, but what I keep hearing from you is by seeing kids as equal adult and have, value wise, seeing their opinions as important, uh, is one thing that you don't see or don't hear is kids as a commodity for attention, for ad sales. Do you feel like we commodify our kids' attention to the point where not only disrespecting them, but we're not valuing them?
I think, well, first of all, what I think the word you're looking for with the opinions is that we talk is equal dignity. So that's a big concept here, is that children have
Yeah.
equal dignity. They have a right to their
That
dignity.
is.
So it's not necessarily that they're an adult. They don't treat them like an adult per se. It's just that they're seen as they have dignity as a human being. And that is what is respected. And that's this thing
Value,
that,
dignity.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, that's the thing with like spanking has been illegal for over 30 years here. It's an unthinkable way of raising a child. It's illegal. And so that just says something right there. And yet they're extremely well behaved. So yeah, so children are seen as very again competent and deserving of respect. And I think because Denmark it's not as much of a capitalistic society. It's not a capitalistic society. So I just, I sometimes in my presentations, I just randomly take pictures of ads I see around the city because I find them so amazing, because you will actually see ads that are for the good of the people.
Like PSAs, like
So
public
like
service
primetime
announcements?
real estate, it changes all the time, but I literally collect the photos. It's like in the metro, it'll say like greed is not Danish.
Oof.
Yeah, or it'll tell you like who you can call if you see someone hurting a child, or yeah, it's just these like subtle reminders of like that we have to take care of each other. And yeah, that's very different. Like, and then I go to Florida and I'm like, gun ad and fast food and call your lawyer, I mean, the lawyer ads are like,
Yeah.
there's a word in Danish which I don't know if that's on your list, but it's at hvile i sig selv, and it means to rest well within yourself.
Oof.
And it's a highly valued characteristic, and it's something that they really try to nurture, so that you should be, it's good to strive, and it's good to have achievement, but it's also really good to be able to rest well within yourself if you don't have those things, because life will give you both.
You can't sell to a person who enjoys being in themselves. It's hard to make them a consumer.
That is the challenge. So when I'm in the US, and I'm driving around and I'm feeling these billboards or I'm seeing the ads, and I'm thinking about resting well within myself and that feeling and what that means, I'm like, everything is trying to pull you out of yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. I feel like
Yeah,
there's a constant competition. I mean, it's the attention economy and everything, but trying to pull you out of it, because if, like you're saying, because then what are you going to buy?
Right. A relaxed person's just going to enjoy life.
I mean, you might buy something, but like, I mean, I'm just saying that I do think it also requires an awareness of the fact that we are being constantly, tried to be pulled out,
Upset
and shaken and scared, and then and offered something to fix that, and then told that something's wrong with us, so we offered else something to fix that. And I think maybe even that should be taught, so that kids can learn to have some critical thinking and be able to protect themselves from some of this.
Who's going to fund that? I think
I don't know.
idea would be just to scare everyone and get into a bunch of wars and scare everyone, I think, and act like life lasts forever and being rich is the ultimate. I think that's a better idea, honestly, Jessica. I'm going to write that book. Actually, I'm sorry. It's already been written.
The American way.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Phallus?
Phallus is the basis of another, like I would say, along with trivsel, which is the well-being we talked about, which is this, the making sure kids feel well, and because if you don't feel well, you can't learn well. Well, that's very much tied to fællesskab. And fællesskab is basically the feeling of belonging and community, and that is seen as one of the most foundational pieces of education, is that we learn how to be in a group. We learn how to collaborate. We have to learn that now forpligtelsesfællesskab literally means obligated togetherness, responsible togetherness. So what it means is that you have fællesskab can be like really fun and easy to be around other people. So that's kind of like hygge. That's like when you enjoy being around people and it's easy. Forpligtelsesfællesskab is when it's a little bit harder, when you have to collaborate with people you don't necessarily want to, or you have to go to family gatherings or these kinds of things. And so in Denmark, they believe that it's super important that we teach kids how to give up the me for the we sometimes. And I think, as an American, like I didn't grow up learning how to collaborate per se. Like maybe if you're on a sports team or something, but generally, because it's just there's a big focus on trying to help people understand that, again, we all need each other sometimes. Teams are the ones that are the most successful, not the individual. And therefore, we need to learn how to work together on a team. And sometimes the way that we work best on a team is we have to sometimes give up a little piece of the me for the we.
And then everyone else is going to do it too.
That's part of education. So let me give you an example. So just right. So my husband was really good at English, and he was in, I don't remember what grade he was in. They were starting to get grades. And he wrote a really good English paper, and they rarely give like perfect scores here. And he got a perfect score, and the teacher went to hand it to him, and she didn't say, "Oh, amazing job. This is fantastic. Let's put it up. Let's start." No, she handed it to him, and she looked at him, and she said, "Du er forpligt," which means you are now obligated to help others because you're so good in English.
With power comes responsibility.
That's it. That's it.
Real Marvel superhero.
It's Marvel
vibes.
superhero vibes. Totally.
It's great.
But like, you never think about it. And again, it's, what I always say is people think, oh, well, how are you going to be competitive, or how are you going to be? I think the difference is it's like what this ultimately teaches you is, first of all, it feels better to win together. It feels better to be part of a team than it is to just be an individual. You go further with a team. It's much more pleasant when everybody knows a little bit more how to work together in a nice way. And then it's just like this idea of resting well within yourself. It's like whether you walk on the moon or whether you walk on a beach, you feel good. And that's kind of the goal.
Imagine that. That's an ad that I would buy whatever it was selling. And you're saying I don't have to buy anything.
And you don't have to buy anything. Well, my book, but no, I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And we do want to get to that, where people can find your book and
No.
else.
I'm joking, but I mean, I think it's like it is hard to get around changing the way we see some things. But I think this is one of those things that really blew me away, because wow, think about all the strife we have, right? Like with the othering and the this and that, and like if also we just had a little more as a goal in education, that we wanted more fællesskab, which is like more hygge, which is more giving kids time to learn how to really collaborate and be together and focus on what we share rather than what makes us different.
If I'm not upset, I might not pick up my phone and I might not see your ads. So I'm gonna keep having that conflict with every amazing thing you say, but I want people to keep it in mind also when they hear it, because you do have to make a choice at some point.
Speaking of phones in your pocket, we have a question from a friend of the podcast and a friend of yours. Merv from Common Sense Media wanted to say hello and ask you this question.
Hey everyone, this is Merv. I am with Common Sense Media, And I am so excited to be here to just ask a question to my friend Jessica. I'm so bummed I couldn't be with you live, but I know that Marlon and the This Helps team is taking care of you. So the question I have for you is that your book emphasizes free play as an essential to children's development and well-being. But today's kids are really growing up in a world that is completely saturated with screens and social media. So how do you think Danish parents are navigating that tension? And what can we learn from that here in America, just as we think about parenting and the constant recognition of screens playing a major role in the world that our kids are living, growing, and developing in?
Well, thank you, Mur, for the question. And I think obviously they're challenged here like they are everywhere. I mean, it's not we're not exempt from some of the problems. I think there's definitely been a big push for phones to be out of schools and much less screen time. So I think that helps a lot. And then just the fact that play is so respected and so it's seen as the most important thing a child can do. It's an educational theory. So it is very much intertwined into their education because children innately want to play. So I think giving them time, they're very good at giving young kids a lot of time to play. As I was saying earlier, marvel at a leaf and have time to sort of think about it. And then my feeling is that they're very good at, compared to other cultures, I find, having some sort of basic ideas about like maybe healthier digital play. So like it's more encouraged that you have like, you're playing with others. So if they are playing, it's encouraged that they're playing physically in the same room, or maybe something that's more quality games. They have really good programs on television that have apps that match up with them. That are, like I said, there's a difference between quality and quantity, and so I think there's a better handle on not just free play but also on digital play, and yeah, this balance helps a lot.
That's so interesting because I'm thinking about, or I guess I'm assuming that there are less young people playing like, I'm so old I don't even know what these games are called anymore, but playing like Fortnite or whatever. And I just, from speaking of Merv, recent Common Sense Media report that like kids are online gambling in the States. Like it's like, I forget the exact percentage, but like kids between 11 and 14, something like 30% of them. And I just have to imagine, with all of what you just said in mind, those kinds of issues are also much less, or much smaller issues maybe in Denmark.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just have more control on it, and I also, and this is, we have a company raising digital citizens. That's actually one of the reasons I know Merv.
That's right.
Which is all about basically taking the Danish way of how they raise digital citizens, and we share that with the world. So we've made like a conversation kit, which is based on like values and how you can talk to your kids in a playful way about their online life and their digital life, because it's also a hugely important thing that we need to have a relationship around. So the idea is that we create more trust rather than fear with our kids, and we become an ally rather than an enemy. And so that's also one of the things we encourage, is like playing with your kids also online, so that you learn about their online life and you can guide them a little bit more, and they know that you're interested, so that they feel that they can come to you if something bad happens. Because this is something I feel that they're very good at in school here as well, is talking about online situations and again, learning from the kids. What are the situations they're dealing with? How do they handle different situations? What are their strategies?
I think that the toolkit that you're talking about is so cool because, adults here don't grow up having those skills to have those conversations the way that they do there. And so to have something, and that your site, the Raising Digital Citizens, is also so many really helpful, straightforward guides and articles. It's just such a great place, I think, for people who maybe do feel a little overwhelmed with even where to start with all of these conversations. There's just so much there.
Yeah, and I mean that's where we made this conversation kit mainly because I needed it with my daughter before she got her phone, and the thing is that many people say talk to your kids, but there's so many things to talk about. It's hard to know where to start and how to cover everything. So this is a playful way to cover all of the important topics like consent and bullying and gaming. If I did that with my son, I didn't do it so much with my daughter. Communication, all of these things, and it's also this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to build that respect, because I feel like digital independence is kind of like a modern day rite of passage now, and it's a real opportunity to become. I always say to become an ally rather than an enemy. And this is where we're sort of promoting the Danish way values in the Raising Digital Citizen sphere, so that you can use that rite of passage to gain respect and treat them with equal dignity, and listen and learn from them, because they have a ton to teach us about technology, and we have a ton to teach them about how to be careful, kind, and safe. But it's I feel like it's one of the most important sort of issues. That's what I'm working a lot with now, is this Raising Digital Citizens.
I love the idea of not having to start from scratch or find, I sometimes am known for when people come over, giving them a book I just read out of selfish desire to talk to them about it. But for someone who maybe isn't going to take the time and read a whole book, but wants to just jump in on a family night together, of course we'll get some candles going, we'll get little pools of light in different areas of the house, nice and warm in there, make it as hygge as possible. But would you say that's the perfect example of the timing for this digital citizenship kit?
Yes, and we talk about that in there's
It's a leading question.
No, there's a little guide in there, and I always say it's hygge, not homework. It's hygge, not homework. It's sit down, have a candle, have a snack, do it at the dinner table, do it with siblings, pull up a card, make it fun, make it playful, learn, listen. And the best success, I always say, it's you don't have to do all the cards, do one card. And I've had parents tell me one card took an hour, and that's success.
That's best case scenario, probably, right? I mean, that's
success.
That means your kid had a lot to say and discuss about that.
Yes, and I think
wow.
the feedback that I hear, which is for me the most touching, is when I hear kids that just say, I'm so happy my mom is actually talking to me about this.
And probably listening too.
I've had some kids that say, "Oh, I thought when she brought this home, I thought it was a box of rules."
Oh man,
he thought it was a box of rules.
Yeah, talk about
it took him a
second.
Homework.
I mean,
it took him a second to believe that his mom was actually going to talk to him and listen and say, what are your favorite characters, or what are your it took him a while, but when he finally realized she was actually asking him questions that were also positive and wanted to listen to him, he was like, oh, my friends should have this. I have friends that need to, talk about this with their parents.
Cool.
It was just,
that. I think
I think so often we because we're also inundated with fear. We're inundated with negativity. So we're missing these little opportunities to also have a positive relationship around it.
It's what a huge opportunity this could be. It really could change the trajectory of your family relationships at even just 1 or 2 times. Having done this versus not ever having done it, to even know it's possible to sit and talk and just reflect each other's value and care about each other. I love that. I love that it's not something you got to start from scratch with, and you've kind of given us some, not rules, but some conversation starters, some guidelines, and allowing us to access it. And that's at raisingdigitalcitizens.com. Jessica, Joelle Alexander, it has been an absolute pleasure. It's been informational, delightful, life-giving, hopeful. These are all the things that I'm hoping people get out of our show, and I think you have delivered on all of those. Thank you for putting up with my incessant devil's advocate and bringing up our culture that I'm bummed out by. And thank you for allowing me to talk about Denmark, one of my favorite places I've ever been. And thank you for bringing it to the rest of the world.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for bringing some of these ideas to your listeners, and I also hope, I'm American, so I mean I'm hopeful too, and I think it's really good to listen, like to look around and to see other places. And I'm one of the things I always say is it's like we Italian food, it's all over the world, we like it, it's good, it's yummy, right? I think Denmark does some amazing things with kids, so maybe we can take a little bit of that and sprinkle it around.
I love it. That's hopeful.
I mean, every country has something they're good at, right? So let's
we
have
have done it with pizza for sure. As you brought up earlier, UNESCO protected pizza, and maybe we could do that with the Danish way of education and childhood.
Well, thank you guys so much.
All right. Well, I hope to talk to you again soon.
You too. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope it helped. Stay connected with us at This Helps Podcast and thishelpspodcast.com. We actually do update that website. It's pretty good. You can also review other people's reviews and then think about what you want to say about our show, because it helps people find the show.